welcome to another episode of the Oral Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Love K. Sean. Today, we will discuss being a boss mom boss, mompreneur, or I don't know how to say it, but
I think that's how you say
it.
We
will talk about how to navigate the world of being a mother and being a businesswoman. I have a special guest, and I will allow her to introduce herself, and then we'll jump right into the questions. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. I'm Jennifer Lynn. I am not from Phoenix, so I moved here like 2 years ago. I'm from New York, but I'm actually a tech consultant for a large bank, and that's my big job, my big-time job. And then I have a couple side hustles, like I'm also a fitness trainer, at the gym. That's like a new career path I took. I used to have a podcast before, so I'm familiar with podcasts, and here and there I like to feature on some podcasts. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is my second time on the Oral Therapy Podcast.
It is.
And it's exciting.
You're on episode 1, so you're like one of the gold members.
Yes.
Platinum members.
An OG.
Thank you for being back. We have another special guest, but he's not on camera.
Yeah.
And
topic of discussion, my little one.
Yes. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about your brand and just things that you wanted to do in your future, and then just dive right into like how your goals change with being a mother and other things like that. So have you had any real changes to your goals or your plans?
Oh my God, I think
future?
like your world just flips upside down. Like I do, but like I've always been a very career driven person.
Yes.
Like I took a career in accounting, I got my master's, did the whole shebang, was working in public accounting, working like 60, 70-hour work weeks, flying here, flying there, which sounded great. And at the time it was great. Like first 5 years of my career, that's like, like I can travel on someone else's dime. Like I traveled all over the world, and I didn't have to worry. And it was like the best experience. But after some time, I did realize I was in this like rat race. I was working out of New York, and I feel like they do have like a different expectation of the way that you work out there. And so I was in the career for 6 years, and I took a look at all my friends and everyone around me having these like life moments. And I was like, when will I get a chance to have that? Like, I don't even have the time to like spend time with my family. I was on a plane Sunday night and was in a hotel like in another city at like in the middle of nowhere till like Thursday, and then back on a plane Sunday. So you get less than 48 hours to yourself, really. Yeah. So I recognized that I had this type of lifestyle, and that wasn't the lifestyle I wanted to see for myself. I obviously wanted to have a family and stuff like that. And I had traveled to all these places, and Arizona just was stuck with me as one of those places that every time I met people, it was like people that I continue to talk to, and I can see myself living here. Yeah. So I made the move right before COVID in March of 2020. When I got here, I was like, okay, like what I really want to do is build a better work-life balance. I ended up landing a job at Wells Fargo, which is where I am now, doing tech consulting, not necessarily accounting, thank God. But although I do love my numbers, but more in the tech space. And so that job allowed me to have this like, I guess like free time, so you say. And so I was a person who was used to working like so many hours. And so when I got here, I took a part-time job working as a host at a restaurant at Hanny's downtown. Shout out Hanny's. And then I started working front desk at a gym at EOS downtown. So, and it was all very central, right? And I was still living this life, but I didn't feel like I was working. It became my social life. And then a year and a half in, I found out I was pregnant. I was still working my 3 jobs. I was working my day 9 to 5. And then after I trained clients at the gym, so I eventually transitioned to training. I ended up training clients at the gym. I still maintain my job as a host. And so I thought that I would be able to keep up that life, right? And so my goal was like, oh yeah, as soon as I am done popping out this baby, I can jump right back into it. And it like doesn't happen that way, of course.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate enough that like the company that I work for, Wells, gives me enough time for maternity leave, so I have over like 16 weeks. So I'm definitely taking full advantage of that. But like motherhood is not a journey that you can prepare for. Like I
I'm
think
glad you said that, because it's kind of like
everybody
you
tells
think you can, or you put it
yeah.
off because you feel like you're not ready, but
Right.
there's never a ready. So.
Yeah, I think women innately have that nurturing type of mentality. And even though women who think that they don't, it will come out. I'm sure of it. I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And like, even at work, people used to call me Mama Jen because I took care of people, you know. But yeah, but it's different when you're taking care of your own child, and then again, your goals change. So like I think that was one of the hardest things I had to accept within the past couple weeks, because he's only like 2 months, so he's only about like 8 weeks, 8-9 weeks. But something that I had to come to terms with is that like I am not the girl that has 3 jobs that can just like up and go here and go there and still maintain a social life. Yeah. Like my world has changed, like flipped upside down in the best ways, but it's definitely an adjustment. It was definitely something that I had to come to terms with, that I couldn't have that life, and I shouldn't have to. I think moms, like, it's a full-time job. Yeah. And it's the hardest job.
It is the hardest job. It's definitely difficult.
And so, because you never really get to separate that boundary.
You're always working 24/7.
Yeah. But it's the most rewarding. I think one of the biggest things that like I feel like how I describe it, and until this day, is like it's a roller coaster that you know that you're gonna have peaks and like really great moments, that you know you're gonna also have some scary moments, but the only way out is through. Yeah. And that's
a good metaphor.
Yeah, that's how I describe it, especially immediately after you give birth, and those first couple of weeks where your emotions
are rebalancing,
your hormone levels are wherever, and you're stuck with like, okay, now you have to take care of this human being, and you're responsible for right, at least for the next 18 years.
And then, but you never stop worrying. So.
Right, exactly. And so that was like the only way I can like tell myself like, okay, I'm gonna absolutely get through this. Yeah. You know.
So do you think that you just coming to terms with that was the biggest challenge that you faced?
I think so in the recent weeks,
just
like
for right now.
Just for right now, because I was one of those girls that was just like running from like this job to this job, always also like into creative projects, like always like helping other people, like promoting their brand and stuff like that. And that's another thing I had to come to terms with too, like I'd always been this career-driven person, and so like I think when people like picture me, it's like, okay, this girl that's like in finance and accounting has this great career, like is traveling all the way, all over the place, and then you become a mom, and then your brand becomes like a mom. Yeah, now you have this. Now I have this view. Like everybody's like, oh, are you enjoying your new accessory? But like, I think it's more of like integrating it in your life, and like that being a mom is the most rewarding job. It's the hardest job, but it is the most rewarding job. So it's nothing that like a degree can teach you.
Yeah, you have to just go through it.
Right.
I think it's good. I think what you said is very important, like just for you to come to terms with that. Whatever everybody else thinks and what everybody else believes you can do and all this. Like, there are people who are like, oh, you can do, yes, you can, but in due time or when you are ready.
That's another thing.
But I like that you developed yourself as this boss, or this, you did the entrepreneur thing, you did the travel thing, you've done things in your life, and then you became a mother. So, you can't integrate that world and that person you are now into who you were, and just become a better person. So
for sure. And I think that like a lot of women feel that they can't have both. Yeah. And that's a lie. I mean, it's very hard to be
hard.
both career and like the best mom and a career driven woman and the best partner or wife or and family person. Like you can't do everything 100%, right? The only thing you can give 100% is yourself. And so I had to like give myself grace too, because I thought that like, again, once I popped out this baby, that I'll be able to just dive into this side hustle and this side hustle, and then like be able to start this all these creative but you like when like life happens, you understand that like your timeline for doing things is not like it's in your head. It's in your head, right? And it's okay. Like I think that we as a society put a lot of pressure to get things done so immediately, but people don't know things don't happen overnight. There's a whole process to it. You know,
I think we beat ourselves up. Because in our heads we think of ourselves in the future as so successful, and we think of all these goals we have and ideas and concepts, and then we want to jump right on them and get things started. But things don't Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think like when you get older, you kind of that term is like really, you understand it more. It settles with you more. Like, no, I can't just do this and that. Just, I'm not going to be a billionaire tomorrow. I have to build my empire.
Exactly.
And then life happens, like, whether that's having a baby, getting married, getting in a relationship, not being, whatever. So you have to make adjustments.
And then you have to give yourself grace for it, because I don't think that we, like, again, we are in a rush society, and so like everyone thinks that has to happen, all together, all at once.
Yeah. What's your most enjoyable thing about being a new mom? Is it the fact that it is a new journey, or?
I think it's rediscovering yourself. I think again, I didn't prepare to be this involved, like I had a different idea, but I always say you're a different person before you get pregnant. I was a very different Jen before I got pregnant. Then I got pregnant and I became a very different person. And then now being a mom, I'm evolving into a different person, and getting to know myself now is like very interesting and exciting for me. I'm enjoying the journey, but I know that it's not always going to be like a beautiful fun journey, right? Like there's gonna have hard hard moments, you know what I mean? And I've met those hard moments too. I've had to face myself.
I think the curveballs are what create the beautiful moments, because then you'll appreciate being able to take him to school when he goes to school or preschool, and like graduation and things like that. You're going to think about the struggles that you've had to go through and overcome to get where you are.
I'm excited for those stages, and of course I'm still adjusting, doing everything that I used to do, but now with a baby. Even like a podcast.
Well, he is our special guest, so
I know, I'm sorry, baby. And just being patient too, patient with myself, patient with him, we're still navigating this world together.
What are some things that you had to immediately cut yourself off from? I am a mother now. I have to not, I'm no longer going to do that, or I'm no longer going to associate with that person, or I'm not going to, what is something you have to?
I think that I was very intentional about that. When I was pregnant, actually, when I found out I was pregnant, because then you start almost legacy planning, right? You're so protective of the energy that is surrounding him, and I had to be very intentional about that, because number one, I think key thing, my first priority and what I wanted to make sure was that I break certain generational curses. And I think that's a huge topic now, especially with motherhood. I think our generation is far more aware of kind of the generational trauma that we've been subject to, and so hopefully through raising our own kids, that we can kind of stop that trauma there.
That's important. And that's something that, you don't think about. Like, how am I going to set myself up, even while you're pregnant, to not have my child go through the traumas that I went through?
Yeah.
Making sure I'm stable, making sure, like you said, having that correct energy around you, even while you're pregnant. That's so important.
I was very intentional about who I surrounded myself with, and who, just the type of scenarios I would put myself into. I definitely had my fair share of still being able to maintain a social life, absolutely. But I made sure it was with people that were in my corner, that heard me, that were there for me. And it is difficult too when you're also a first-time mom and most of your friends are not mothers yet, or you only have very few. But then, and that was another beautiful thing about motherhood. You get this whole new world of like friends and sisters that like understand what you're going through,
and that support you in your journey.
Yeah, I had like, I went to an all-girls high school, but I had girls that I had not even spoken to in years found out I was pregnant and just would send something, or like would say something, and just like, like extended their like the access to them, and it just like showed me so much about like motherhood, and how like it does take a village, and you have to utilize that village.
And I think everybody just understands, like, especially if a person is a mother, or even if you've helped raise children, like, the struggles that
even
a
if you
person
have
is going
a lot
go
of
through.
siblings,
So you're like, oh, you're about to take on this journey, like, and that's just a part of being a woman also, just
For
like
sure.
knowing like this person's gonna go through some things, and support them in the best way possible. Do you feel like you have a good support system?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people were worried because not many people can move to a new city where they didn't know a single person really.
That is
like,
like you
and then have this. I am very, very grateful for the support system that I do have. But I also, not to toot my own horn, but it's a testament of the type of person I am. I think that like you attract what you put out there. And like, I think I've always been a person who wanted to support others, who is like, if I was in your corner, I'm in your corner. I don't half-ass like being in your corner. And I think that's like the beautiful thing. And going back to the whole generational curse, like I really had to face even my trauma and even my like issues with whether it's family stuff or friend stuff, in leaving a life, because essentially I had to kind of grieve a life that I used to have in New York, like very different lifestyle over there. And the way people are, they treat you very differently. And I'm so blessed that in Arizona I found like a family, and I found a support system, and I couldn't be any more grateful for that. But I think that like I had to be intentional about the type of people that I met out here.
You're right. I think you had the opportunity to go into another state and kind of recreate who you wanted to be. And like really, know what your morals are, know what the type of people you want around you, kind of being in a more mature state of mind.
1,000%.
I think that was good, especially before you decided to have a family, and now that you've had a child, it's even more investing into, what I'm going to do, and like everything's more
things
important.
And
I will attest that you are a very supportive person. You've always supported me, and that's another reason why I wanted to highlight you too today, because like what other boss mom, will I highlight?
I appreciate it.
You've done so many things, and I think it's an important topic because you have to get out and hustle, and even if that's with, your
with your
Louis bag and your diaper bag,
right.
You got to do what you have to do.
You have to do what you got to do.
What are some tips that you would give to new moms, or, people who are considering creating their own families?
I would say,
like, if you had 5 big tips.
5 big tips.
Is that too many?
Yeah.
3 big tips.
No, that's a good question.
Like pregnancy, birth, and then the aftercare.
I always say, like, living your life to the fullest. There's not one time where I felt like I missed out on anything.
Yeah.
Just because I still made sure that I was able to maintain a life that, like, I was in the moment for a lot of it, you know? Yeah. So one, live your life to the fullest. And I think, again, be intentional about your goals. I think that, like, this society can con you into, like, not wanting, you don't have to want a nuclear family to be a mom. Yeah. Or you don't have to, like, I think there is also a stigma that you need to be, like, to be very honest, I didn't plan to have him. Him and me and his dad were not very serious, like, when we first had him, and that's something I'm very open about, just because we live in a generation where it's like, oh, you know, like, it's almost, there's like some negative connotation to it, but two people can make it work and can create a family atmosphere even after the fact. And I do think that babies are a blessing. Yeah. So, and you know, I do commend women though that go through it alone. So my thing is, don't give in to, like, the society's expectations. And even as a mom, 100%, I think one thing that, like, I continually talk myself out of is that you don't have to be the mom that, like, breastfeeds 24/7, or the mom that, you know, has all the right gadgets or toys, or, like, has the most up-to-date things. Like, you don't have to be that. As long as your kid is happy and healthy, like, don't get down on yourself for not being able to be, like, one of those momfluencers on Instagram. You know?
The perfect mom. Right. I don't think there is a perfect mom. I think that, like, even thinking about my mom, like, I think that my mom did the best that she could, and that made her a perfect mom. Our parents did the best that they could.
Like, they did things where, like, and we have, like, we are privileged now to have all access to all these things.
Yeah, my mom didn't have all those gadgets and tools, but
our parents did not.
I'm alive, you know. I made it to be an adult, so
she did successful, beautiful adult. You know?
She did something right.
She did something right.
Those are great tips, and I think you're right. Like, the whole concept about being a mother and, like, how things should go, and, you know, the relationship you should have with the father, and, like, you know, everybody has this. I think that's what creates this toxic thing, is that people want to hold on to, like, if he doesn't want to be with you, then let him go, or, like, if this person
I could go into a whole thing, you know, about
people want to have this family unit so bad that they'll stay in this toxic situation, or they try to make things work that are not gonna work, you know, because they just refuse to have people speak about them in a way, or they just don't want to let go of the family dynamic, and they don't want to face stigma. They don't want to be the stereotype. They don't want that world, so they, like, they deal with whatever. Just because.
And there's such a kind of negative, like, thing now around baby mama and baby daddy drama all over the internet, and it, like, pains me.
You know because it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't. I mean, I was a subject of divorced parents, so I knew very early on, like, I wanted to be a mom, but I didn't know if marriage was in the cards for me necessarily. Not that I'm ruling it out, but
that's another thing. It's like, we can't be prepared. We may not have that fairy tale set up, so just winging it is, like, the best way to do it, because life is gonna happen.
And as long as you're not, like you said, like, subjecting your kid to a toxic environment, you know. And I'm very open about the journey, you know, like, when you have a kid, things change too. Like, you want to be able to make it work, and your kid deserves a fair shot at it. But relationships take work, and it's work that you have to put into your family, you know.
How, like, I want to talk, because a lot of women that I've, like, just heard or known have had concerns adjusting to, like, their new body. So I want to hear from you. I won't call it a mom body, because I think that's rude, or that's not appropriate. But, like, how are you adjusting to your body being different after having your child? Like, do you feel?
I mean, okay, so I was very blessed. So being in my
you
fitness,
you looked really good while you're pregnant.
I like, honestly, I give that testament to being in fitness, and I think that if I wasn't working out like 6 days a week before I was pregnant, I wouldn't be like this way. And I do it, but it's all like lifestyle, right? And so
that's important.
I was very lucky throughout my pregnancy that I barely gained weight, but that's something that like I help my clients with now. Like a lot of the females at the gym now, they see me and they're like, you had a baby and like, you know, like I'm postpartum and like, how do I postpartum bodies, you need to give yourself grace to. Like every woman's body and every woman's journey on pregnancy and labor and postpartum is different, you know? And so physically, you need to give yourself labor. You literally birthed a whole human being. And I think...
carried it for 9 months and then birthed it.
I know. So. I made it look... I mean... I made it look easy.
You did. I was like, she looks you almost look better.
I'm
not
very
saying that you
grateful.
Didn't look beautiful before. I was just like, she looks like
I'm very
goddess.
grateful for like the physical, like, you know, the physical ease. I'm not going to sit here and say the mental ease has been all that easy. You know what I mean? Because we all have our internal battles. But I think that like, I still have to give myself grace too.
Yeah.
Like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm not as strong as I used to be. I'm not as toned. I don't have like these muscles like here anymore. Like everything's different.
Yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we do that way too much as women, and we just have to give ourselves grace and remember that like again, like because of you've given life to
you did
a whole
something
human.
very honorable and beautiful. So.
Yeah.
I think also just society, like, and then a lot of men don't make it better because some people like. A woman may have a man who doesn't make her feel comfortable or like reassure her in that moment, and that could play a huge role in her mental, or just in how she feels about herself. So that definitely plays a role. But like you just having a supportive partner is also important. That's why like being in a toxic relationship is not important because if you're not getting what you need or the support, then it's not worth
sometimes
it.
Men just like don't understand. Like my partner, he's not very
easily.
He's not very vocal about physicality like that. Like I guess they just assume that you are like good, like you don't really need that reassurance. I think it's important for women to communicate. I don't feel like that. Like with my body, you know what I mean?
Like I don't feel sexy or I don't feel the same. Because so many things have changed.
Yeah, and again, like I think my advice for men too is that like if you do have a partner that is pregnant or you know had a baby, like I guess like openly communicate with her on the things that she's embracing, that she loves about her body, because my pregnancy journey, although I looked and felt beautiful, it wasn't always that way. Case, like you know, like your partner sees you different, and that was very difficult for me and for him to like, you know, to like understand. But I think communicating with your partner that like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, or this is something that I'm like start learning to embrace is key. Yeah. You know?
How did you prepare for the possibility of postpartum or?
I was very prone to postpartum because I had my fair share of depression and anxiety, and so that was like one of the scariest things because as I was reading, like postpartum is much harder, you know, and I would say it is much harder than actually having a baby. I told everyone like that's the easy part. Labor was the easy part for me. It's the postpartum, and again, those first 2 weeks. Did you have any
moments where you felt like
100%? I think that like I have to check myself daily. Like I check in. I've joined this like group therapy too for postpartum. Awesome. I think it's key to have a support system. I think it's key to make sure that I had to work a lot on my mental health. And this is actually one of the biggest advices that I would give. If there's anything that you can work on, and I'm not even saying financially, because everybody wants to be financially stable to have a family. And I'm going to tell you right now that like goes out the door because you just make it work. Yeah. But what I do think that people should work on is their mental health. before they have a family, because a lot of people are not in the best mental health, bringing in children and then like imposing their mental health issues on their kids.
Wow. That's a really good
and
point.
Something that like me and his father was very intentional about, because we've both struggled with our own mental health issues, is that one, we want to make sure our kid knows that he can talk about it, you know, and two, that like we want to be able to address and deal and heal from our things as much as possible before we give life to this being. Person. And I think that's like one of the key things. And there's there's so many things you can do to prepare yourself, because it's not like mental health issues, they don't just go away. You're gonna have to deal, like, even when you think you've healed from it, it's still gonna like come up.
Yeah,
but
it's a struggle that you're gonna have to develop new coping skills for.
Right.
You're gonna have to get new training on, and
you have to find out what those healthy coping mechanisms are. So if you find yourself like, you know, abusing more substances or drinking more alcohol, or you partying or just socializing for the sake of socializing, like, I think it's very easy. And I was a player in that too, you know what I mean? But I had to address all of those things before having a kid, and going into therapy, being open to therapy, and then it's okay to go in and out of therapy. You know what I mean? But also finding your support system and having people that check in on you. I think that was key. Yeah. Even during my pregnancy, I think I was very blessed with people that checked in on me, you know?
That's good. I don't think that I would have ever thought that would be something that you should do. I think I work in mental health, so that's always in my mind, you know? But just that is something that's important, because if you are not, you know, in a healthy mental state, or your partner isn't, you're gonna be, you know, going down a bigger well, bringing a child into the world.
And one thing I do want to even touch pointing, because I never always just as much as I like, you know, I'm all about the women, you have to recognize that men struggle too. Yeah. And I think that like me and his dad, we're always checking in with each other, because we have our moments of postpartum, and men can also get postpartum as well. And I never knew this until we both took a course, a labor course, and they talked about it, you know what I mean? But we had to be intentional about that, and we're like, but it's so true that men can develop postpartum as
because
well.
Their lives they change also.
Dad's lives change too. There's a lot of pressure. If they're involved,
yes.
Yes, if they're involved, but like. But if there's a reason they're not involved, it's probably due to their mental health. I can guarantee it. Because like, I feel like men, there's different pressures when it comes to having kids too. Yeah. You know, and I don't think that's talked about either. Yeah.
Then you have to think about, did they have a parent? Or, you know, their parents like together.
Their relationship with it.
Did they grow up and see certain healthy relationships develop, or, you know, just all of the above? What I want to ask you, what are you most excited about in the next upcoming months with your baby?
Oh my God.
I know, he's like, I'm over it already. Like, I started, I'm done.
No. I think like learning his more personality. I feel like he already has a personality at like 2 months, and he is a generally really good baby. He is now, but he just wanted to be featured. Yeah, that's okay. But I think like learning his personality. Obviously every day he's like growing, and it's crazy. So like seeing him evolve, like seeing his expressions, and just continuing to wish him like the best life, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think that like all you can do and now is just like pray your kid is happy and healthy. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. In the world we live in, that's like gold right now. Right. Because everybody suffers different things, and you just hear about so many terrible stories with children, or just with parents, mothers, you know. There's a lot of toxic domestic violence and killings and murder, suicide. So the fact that you guys took the time to really consider your mental health and plan for being in good space when you had a
to,
child is important. Because
and even now, like, again, like every day we have to check in with each other.
Yeah, like, how are you? Because
like, how are you doing? Like, do you
it's another thing is, like, I've noticed too, like, everybody always asks about the baby.
Yes,
you know?
Yes,
so
everybody always asks about the baby, and then they ask about mom, but then dad's less priority, and
he's like not asked about.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
right, right.
Sorry,
but I do think that's like something that we as a society also need to change. Is
just check
also
in with everybody, like,
general stigma around men's mental health.
Yeah,
you know,
I definitely want to highlight that too. Like, I want to dive in with some really open men because
who are open and vulnerable about
that's
their
important.
Yeah, no, for
but
sure.
But it sounds like you guys have already stepped outside of the box and like the norms, and that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, we had to be really real with ourselves
and be creative. It sounds like you just had created this creative way of being a mother and having him in your life as the father, and then just growing with the baby, because you're growing too. As they grow, you grow.
Exactly. And again, we didn't plan this. We kind of just winged it, but we were very intentional about making sure this kid grew up in a very stable environment. And like, that's what I just wish for people. I mean, I again, we didn't have examples of good relationships growing up. You know what I mean? Like, our parents were not together, stuff like that. Like same with him. And I think that when you recognize, again, people's generational trauma, you can address those. And I think that, like, that's a conversation a lot of people should have before having a kid.
Yeah.
You know?
If you have the opportunity to.
If you have the opportunity to.
Yeah. What has been the most embarrassing moment being a mom? Like, I've heard breast milk stories, like,
I think breastfeeding is very embarrassing. Like,
why is it embarrassing?
I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's beautiful. But personally, I was just like, this is a little bit too much, like, of an invasion of privacy. You know what I mean?
Like, you're violating.
Right. Like, I knew, like, early on, like, this was not something I applaud women that do it, like 100%. But I just knew it wasn't for me.
You.
Yeah, like, I knew it. And like, that's also something very difficult to come to terms with. Yeah. You know, because like, if people hear, oh, you're not breastfeeding, like, there's a whole different stigma. But I just want to point out that back then, women were living in different times. Yeah. Like,
they didn't have as
many they weren't formula. You know, one, there wasn't what we have now, which is ironic because we don't have it. Baby formula. But we don't have, they didn't have what they had now. And also most of them were stay-at-home moms. They can live on one income homes. Now we are working women. Yeah. Working women who, like, it's very hard to like go about a day being a woman and then also having to like pump here and there or breastfeed here and there.
Or make sure you have pumped enough so that when the babysitter or the daycare has the baby, he has
enough food. And like, it's a whole thing. Yeah. And I had to make the decision early on. I knew, and when you do breastfeed, people don't talk about how painful it is, how mentally straining it is. And you can develop like, because like, your body goes through kind of, I don't even completely can explain it, but like, your body goes through this like change, like during pumping, that it be like different hormone levels, like you're in a different mental state. It kind of sets you in a trance, and it's very mentally draining as it is physically. Yeah. And I knew that being more prone to postpartum depression, and then also having to pump, I just knew it was like one of those things that like I needed to make a choice for myself. And in that moment, you know, and like, I knew that me not breastfeeding, I would be a happier mom. I would be a happier person, and ultimately like have that for like a happier kid, you know. Your baby will be just fine on formula or breast milk, you know.
And then you just have to make the decision that's right for you,
like,
not feel guilty. Like,
I mean, beautiful thing that mothers
make you feel
do.
Bad, or like, did you have any guilt surrounding that?
They didn't even like want me to leave the hospital unless they knew I was gonna breastfeeding, which is crazy. Yeah, yeah.
So they're like, we're gonna force you to breastfeed?
Essentially, they like make sure that your baby latches that you're
on,
breastfeeding. Like that was like really the only thing holding me back, and no one really had the conversation with me until like I got to talk to my pediatrician like 3 days later, and they were like, well, he dropped in weight. But like I hear that like seasoned moms, they'll go in there with the formula like already. You know what I mean? That they know. So I think that like knowing yourself and knowing of course I thought that like I'd be able to do it, but I also knew that like it's a huge lifestyle change.
Yeah.
You know, because you have to pump like every 3-4 hours.
And then you can't just leave the baby with anybody. You have to, it's like more planning.
Yeah,
more that
more
has to
planning,
go into
more
actually.
things that you have to go into. And I knew the type of life that I had, and I would have felt guilty if I couldn't produce that much, if I couldn't be there for my kid. You know what I mean? There was a lot of mom guilt.
Yeah, it sucks, but I think that you have a strong mental, and you're standing on what you believe. So
and also what really helped was that my partner and his dad was like very supportive of that choice. He was like, Jenny, like you can, like, as our kid will be fine, you have to do what's right for you.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of those moments where I like really like appreciated the fact that he understood that.
Yeah. What's been your secret weapon? Like,
Secret
what's been
weapon.
something that's like, oh my God, this is helping me so much. I don't know what I would do without this. Whether it's a special blanket or a special tool in your home, like what's been like your secret weapon to navigating being a mom?
Oh my gosh, what's our secret weapon?
It's like
I don't know if there's.
every baby
I
may be
rave about
different.
this stroller. No, okay, I rave about this stroller, and it is a very expensive stroller.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's like due to that. Like we like to go out a lot on walks, or like you know.
So your car seat is the one that turns into a stroller.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm like, what?
And people say that this is like, and I always say this is like the BMW of like strollers.
Okay.
Like
I can see why it's braveable.
Well, one advice that one of my mom friends told me is that invest in a good travel system, because you don't want to get a cheap one and then have to buy another one like three months later.
Don't even waste your time. Just do what you need to do.
Just like bite the bullet on it. And like shout out to his TTs and stuff, because they're the ones who spoil him with like a good stroller.
What does the future hold for both of you? What are you planning on doing? I know you've started to vlog
I was like, I mean, I also toyed with the fact that, did I want my kid on social media? Did I like, it's a
That's
big
another
decision.
thing you have to
decide, you have to think about,
you know?
like, because you see all of these like people, like it's not like, you don't trust society sometimes. Like there's people who do sick things with pictures of innocent kids, and I had to like really check myself. But you know, like I wanted to share my life with him, and like he's such a part of it. So, you know, like we do our little vlogs here and there, and like I think
I saw him doing the little peace sign.
Yes. Obviously I want him to be, you know, socialized and well, like adapt to things well. I think honestly, I just want to set an example to him of being like a good person and be creative. So just making sure that like, you know, I do the things that I want to do, and I'm not held back. And even his dad is a very talented chef, and one thing that like I want our kid to know is just like we work really hard, you know, and that like never get down on yourself about like what you do. Yeah. So we're keeping an open mind right now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you've been open and honest, and that
I'm sorry that he's so like
you're fine. You've been open and honest about many things that women struggle with, and like just your specific journey. And I think everybody has a different story, and if everybody realizes that your story is going to be different from the next mom or the next boss or the next woman, like I think people need to own their creativity and own their uniqueness, and I think we would see a lot more success. But everybody wants to do what other people do because they feel like they're missing out or they are not as good if they don't do it the same way. You know, they want that success, so they just try to follow the same pattern, not realizing that life is going to happen and they live a different life. They're different. So
I think one of the things is just being able to go with the flow and give yourself grace, and just like, we don't have it all figured out here.
Yeah,
like,
nobody does.
I know. So. I was like, okay, I'm going to pull up to this like podcast with my baby. Maybe he might cry. Maybe he might, you know, be asleep. But like,
it's important. Like, people need to
this
see.
This is real.
This is a real thing. Like, we're not capping no crap here, you know?
Right.
And I think everybody's going to, like, love you for this. Like, everybody, you know, I don't think anybody's going to, like, anybody who knows and really is in tune with life, like, there shouldn't be no judgment.
There's also no sugarcoating this. Yeah. Like, it looks good, but I tell you, behind closed doors, I have a ton of laundry to fold. Yeah. I have probably barf on all my clothes. I mean, but again, it's the most rewarding thing. And like, you have so much love for human and a family and all that. And I also am very grateful to my support system too. Yeah. People who check in or just was like, hey, Jen, do you want me to watch the baby so you could shower? Like those little things, you know, those little things matter. And even if you don't have a baby or you're getting baby fever, then just like reach out to your friends and be like, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Because I'm 1,000% moms always have something to that they need help with. Yeah.
So my last question, it's definitely something that, you know, I want to know how you maneuver and like other women could benefit from is like, how do you manage your time for self-care?
Oh God, yeah. You definitely have to make time for it.
Yeah.
Like when I tell
before you're pregnant, you can like go do your hair, your nails.
You can do your hair, your nails, your lashes. Yeah. Oh my God. Now you're like even showering, you have to almost like ask permission or something. Like,
like, can I go shower?
It's insane. No, but I literally have to ask his dad like multiple, like on times. I'm like, I just like need you to tell me when you're coming home because like I want to shower
and like, clean my body.
And I think that having a supportive partner that understands your self-care, like one thing that it's been difficult for me is like I haven't had time to go to the gym every day, and that's something that like I wish I could because that also helps with my mental health, but I had to make it work. Like I think that as a mom, you kind of just wing it. So making it known you to shower, and then also I go with him to the gym. You know what I mean? Like I take him to my apartment gym, and even if it's like a 20-minute workout or he lets me work out for 15 minutes, like me just going there like
help
to be on like the treadmill for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and then just making time for things like I am big into my hair. I literally got my like hair done the other day, and I had to tell his dad like that's my time.
This is
you
my
know?
2 hours.
And he
like,
totally understands. And like my nails, he comes with me, you know? So like making time for self-care is so crucial as a mommy. So I think like whenever you can fit it in. And I think like a lot of women go through some like mom guilt of like, if I'm away from my baby for an hour to get my nails done or to get my hair done.
Does that
like,
make me a bad mom?
Yeah,
or does that make
and I'm
me
like,
not
no, put yourself first, because I always say this, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you're trying to love your child and show love to your kid, but you can't even show love to yourself first.
And you feel, not in the best place, like you're not going to give that genuine love.
Like your kid deserves a happy mom, a happy dad, and like self-care is a priority. And also like check in with your partner to see like what their self-care habits are, you know what I mean? Like
how do they make themselves feel better and healthy?
Right. I know for mine, like he likes to make sure he takes time to wash the car, or like, he has an hour after work to just completely decompress and not. But we had to go through some trials and tribulations in order to figure that out. Yeah, because sometimes I would have been like, oh, here, have this kid as soon as you go. But like,
you walk through the door, it's your turn.
Right. But like, he deserves time to decompress from a long day. You know what I mean? So
just putting yourself in that person's shoes too. I think him putting himself in your shoes with having the baby all day, and then you when he comes home from work, or like vice versa,
and communicating it too. Like we need to communicate, like even on the most unspoken things or things that we think that don't matter. We have to, you know.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for having me.
You always have supported, like I said. So having you on was a no-brainer, especially for this topic. And I wish you so much blessings and growth and love and energy. That is so positive, and you already have that already. So I know that nothing but greatness is to come. So come back again. We're going to do the reunion show. So, you know, you're going to see Jen again. But thank you so much for bringing the baby. Thank you for, like I said, being vulnerable to talk about certain things. So this is important.
And thank you for giving an opportunity for people, I think, to talk about these things. And this is not the only thing, like even on your other podcasts that I follow along, and like allowing people to be open, creating a safe place in general for people to openly talk about how they feel and go through difficult topics. Like, you know, we need to create more safe spaces for people. And I love that the Oral Therapy Podcast is that. Yeah. It's literally a therapy session. Yeah,
it is. And that's my whole concept. You know, I know that the name is like so witty, or, you know, people may have another view on it, but it really is just us. It's literally oral, us talking and having a therapy session.
For sure.
You know, I'm not a licensed clinician, but I work in mental health, and I definitely feel like that's a passion of mine. I'm a certified life coach, so I'm always wanting to help people to see who they are and step into their greatness. And by helping others, I help myself. And this is the way that I get therapy, just talking to people and like hearing. Like I'm a person who loves to learn from others. You know, I don't want to go down the hard path. So you've taught me some things, because you never know where I'll be, and I want to be a good mom as well. So
and you will, because you're the best TT.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, TT.
Well, thank you guys for tuning into another episode of the Oral Therapy Podcast, and
make sure you follow, like and subscribe.
Exactly, and look for more of us, because we ain't going nowhere. Okay. Bye.